Hello everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.
Chúc mừng
Today,
anh, cảm ơn
we
anh vì tất
invite
cả.
you to join
Cảm
us
ơn em và
on
mọi
a
người.
deeply
Rất cảm động.
emotional
Chúng em luôn
journey,
ủng hộ anh.
a story about love, sacrifice, and the strength to hold on when life is at its most fragile. This is the story of a man who stood on the edge between life and death, and the woman who never left his side, no matter how dark the days became. Together, they remind us that hope can be reborn, and that true happiness often waits in the simplest moments. If you enjoy stories that touch the heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next video. Now, let's begin. Congratulations. We're truly so happy that you've recovered. Thank you. I'm incredibly grateful for everything you've done. Welcome home, my love. Wishing you both a lifetime of happiness together. Good luck with everything ahead. We'll see you soon. See you later. Thank you for everything. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today's story is an emotional journey filled with love, sacrifice, patience, and hope. It's a story that reminds us how fragile life can be, and at the same time, how strong the human heart truly is when love becomes its anchor. Dieu spent many long, difficult days in the hospital, fighting a life-threatening illness that once pushed him to the thin line between life and death. There were moments when even the doctors could not be certain which direction his fate would take. Every day felt like a battle, and every night felt endless. During those darkest moments, when pain and fear quietly took over, Huyen never once left his side, not for a minute. While Dieu lay weak and exhausted, Huyen became his strength. With her constant care, unwavering devotion, and the tireless efforts of compassionate doctors, Dieu slowly began his journey back to life. Step by step, he regained his strength. Breath by breath, he rediscovered his will to live. And little by little, the dream of returning home began to feel possible again. The day he was finally discharged from the hospital was not just the end of a medical treatment. It marked a powerful rebirth, a return of hope, faith, and gratitude for life itself. As Dieu made his way back to the farm he loved so deeply, he came to realize something profound. True happiness doesn't come from grand achievements or material things. It lives in simple moments, in unwavering love, and in the courage to never give up, even when everything feels lost. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories about love, healing, and the strength of the human spirit. Your support truly means everything to us and helps us continue bringing meaningful stories like this to you every day. Thank you so much for watching, and now, let's begin the story. Dieu had spent countless days lying on a hospital bed, battling an illness that once seemed to have no way out. In the early days of his hospitalization, his body was almost completely drained of strength. His breathing was heavy and uneven. His eyes, once full of life, were now clouded with exhaustion. With each passing day, his body grew thinner, weaker, and more fragile. The hospital room felt cold and unfamiliar. The sharp smell of disinfectant filled the air, and the steady beeping of medical machines echoed through the night. In those quiet, sleepless hours, Dieu often stared at the ceiling, wondering if he would ever return to his small home on the peaceful farm again. The thought that he might never walk on his land, never touch the soil, and never feel the morning breeze of the countryside filled his heart with silent fear. Yet even in those moments, when hope felt distant, Huyen was always there. She never left him, not even for a second. Night after night, she sat beside his bed, holding his hand tightly, as if letting go would mean losing him forever. Even when her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, she stayed awake, watching his chest rise and fall, counting each breath as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Every morning, Huyen woke up early before the sun rose. She carefully prepared warm milk and soft meals, knowing that Dieu could barely eat. With patience and gentleness, she fed him spoon by spoon, softly encouraging him to take just one more bite, one more sip, hoping it would help him regain even a little strength. To her, every small improvement mattered. Every breath he took was a victory worth celebrating. The doctors at the hospital also gave Dieu special attention. They treated him not only with professional knowledge and experience, but with genuine compassion. Every infusion, every medical test, and every checkup was closely monitored. Nothing was taken lightly. Even late at night, the on-duty doctors would quietly step into his room. They spoke in calm, reassuring voices as they asked about his condition. They patiently explained each detail to Huyen, teaching her how to care for him properly and how to observe even the smallest changes in his body. That combination of medical dedication and Huyen's unconditional love slowly carried Dieu through the most critical stage of his illness. Day by day, small changes began to appear. His complexion became slightly rosier. His breathing grew lighter. He no longer felt as though each breath was a struggle. One day, he managed to sit up on his own. Another day, he drank water without assistance. Eventually, with Huyen supporting him closely, he began practicing slow walks down the quiet hospital corridor. Each step was unsteady. His legs trembled and his body swayed. But every single step was a huge victory. Tears filled both of their eyes as they moved forward together, inch by inch. Those moments were painful, exhausting, and emotional, but they were also filled with hope. As time passed, Dieu's condition continued to improve. Consecutive test results showed positive signs. The doctors began to smile more often when reviewing his medical charts. The tension in the room slowly faded, replaced by cautious optimism. Huyen noticed something else too. The spark of life had returned to Dieu's eyes. They were no longer clouded by despair. He began to speak more, sharing stories and memories that had once seemed so far away. He talked about the farm, about the land they had reclaimed together with their own hands. He spoke of the chickens, the goats, and the lush green vegetable garden he had been separated from for so long. Every time he mentioned the farm, his voice grew warmer and stronger, as if that place itself was giving him energy. To Dieu, the farm wasn't just land. It was home, purpose, and the source of strength that had helped him survive. And then, the day they had both been waiting for finally arrived. That morning, the head doctor entered the room with a gentle smile. After checking the results one last time, he looked at Dieu and Huyen and announced that Dieu was well enough to be discharged from the hospital. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Huyen could no longer hold back her tears. They streamed down her face as she covered her mouth, overwhelmed with emotion. Dieu stood still, frozen in place, as if he needed a few seconds to truly understand what he had just heard. Then, slowly, a radiant smile spread across his face. A smile filled with relief, gratitude, and joy. It had been a long time since he had felt happiness that deep. The thought of going home, breathing freely again, and standing once more on his beloved farm made his heart beat faster. It felt like a dream he had almost lost forever. They hurriedly packed their belongings, carefully folding each piece of clothing. Dieu slowly looked around the hospital room, the room that had witnessed his struggle between life and death. his heart filled with deep gratitude. Before leaving, he bowed his head sincerely to thank the doctors, the people who had saved his life with both knowledge and kindness. As the car carrying Dieu and Huyen rolled away from the hospital under the gentle midday sunlight, a new chapter was quietly beginning. The car moved steadily down the road, leaving the hospital behind. Dieu leaned back in his seat, his eyes fixed on the view outside the window. Familiar streets slowly appeared, lined with trees that swayed gently in the breeze. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting soft shadows on the road. Everything looked different now, brighter, calmer, more alive. It was as if the world itself was welcoming him back. Huyen sat quietly beside him. From time to time, she turned to look at his face, her eyes filled with relief and love. For so long, she had lived in constant fear of losing him, fear of waking up to silence instead of the sound of his breathing. Now, seeing him sitting there, alive and smiling, felt almost unreal. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy. Full recovery would take time, patience, and effort. But she believed, with all her heart, that returning home would give Dieu the strength he needed. The familiar environment, the fresh air, and the peaceful rhythm of farm life would help him heal, not just physically, but emotionally as well. When the car finally stopped at the gate of the farm, Dieu couldn't hide his emotions. He opened the door slowly and stepped out, his movements careful but determined. He paused for a moment, then took a deep breath. The familiar scent of soil, grass, and wind filled his lungs. It was a smell he had missed more than he ever realized. In front of him stood the small wooden house, the green garden, and the land that held so many memories of their life together. The farm looked exactly as he remembered it, yet somehow more beautiful. Dieu reached out and placed his hand on the old wooden fence. Its rough texture beneath his fingers brought a gentle smile to his face, grounding him in the reality of being home. Huyen stood beside him in silence, watching that moment unfold. Her heart was filled with a quiet, profound happiness, the kind that doesn't need words. Seeing Dieu standing there, breathing freely, was more than she had ever dared to hope for during those long nights in the hospital. Dieu turned to her and held her hand tightly. His voice was soft, but every word came from the deepest part of his heart. He thanked her for never giving up on him, for staying by his side through the darkest days of his life, and for believing in him when he could no longer believe in himself. Huyen smiled through her tears. She didn't need grand speeches or promises. To her, as long as Dieu was alive and standing there with her, every sacrifice she had made was worth it. That afternoon, Dieu sat on a wooden chair on the porch, facing the farm. The golden light of the setting sun bathed the land in warmth, stretching long shadows across the fields. The gentle sounds of nature, the rustling leaves, distant animals, and soft breeze created a sense of peace that he hadn't felt in a long time. Huyen prepared a warm cup of tea and carefully placed it in his hands. She then sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. After everything they had been through, silence felt comforting rather than empty. In that quiet moment, Dieu reflected on his illness and the journey he had survived. It had taught him to cherish life in a way he never had before. He now understood that even the most ordinary moments, sitting on a porch, holding a warm cup of tea, watching the sunset, were priceless. He promised himself that from now on, he would live more slowly. He would listen to his body, grow stronger day by day, and take care of his health with intention. More importantly, he vowed to continue building the farm and the life he and Huyen had nearly lost. Not in a rush, not driven by pressure, but guided by gratitude and purpose. The farm was no longer just a place to live. It had become a powerful symbol, a symbol of hope, resilience, and a love strong enough to overcome even the greatest hardships. It stood as proof that no matter how dark the storm, there is always a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to begin again. As the sky slowly turned shades of orange and purple, Dieu leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. For the first time in a long while, his heart felt light. He wasn't thinking about illness or fear anymore. He was thinking about tomorrow, about tending the garden, feeding the animals, and waking up to another day beside the woman who had saved his life in more ways than one. Huyen looked at him and smiled softly. In that moment, she knew that while the past had been painful, it had also revealed something beautiful, the depth of their love and the strength they carried together. Life, she realized, isn't measured by how many days we live, but by the meaning we find in each one. And there, on that quiet farm, surrounded by nature and love, Dieu had found his way back, not just to his home, but to life itself. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Your words mean more than you know. Thank you for watching. Bye bye and see you
Trong câu
soon.
chuyện cảm động này,
This
Huyền đoàn
story
tụ với Đệ
follows
sau
Dieu,
nhiều tháng xa
a
cách.
man who
Mối
faced
dây
the
liên kết
fragile
của họ
line between
được
life
củng cố
and
bởi sự
death
vắng mặt
after a
và
severe
tình yêu bền
illness
vững.
left him
Cùng nhau họ tập
hospitalized
trung
for
chăm sóc
months.
cô gái Maya,
Weak,
xây dựng một mái ấm
exhausted,
an toàn
and
tràn
filled
đầy yêu
with
thương.
fear, he
Đồng
slowly
thời hỗ trợ
lost
Tử
hope
Vi, một cô gái trẻ đang
until
đối
the
mặt với khó
unwavering
khăn.
love of Huyen
Những khoảnh khắc gia
became
đình,
his greatest
bữa
strength.
ăn,
She stayed
dựng
by
lên một
his
cấu
side
trúc cho
day
Maya
and night,
và chia sẻ
caring
tiếng
for
cười,
him through every painful moment,
phản ánh tình yêu
while
sâu sắc
compassionate
và sự quan
doctors
tâm lẫn
fought
nhau trong gia
alongside
đình.
them.
Tuy nhiên,
Step by step,
sự bình yên của họ
Dieu
gián
began
đoạn
to
khi những
recover,
kẻ xâm nhập xuất hiện,
rediscovering
tìm
his
kiếm
will
Tử
to
Vi
live
và làm nổi bật
and his
sự mong
dream
manh
of
và những nguy
returning to the
hiểm mà họ
farm
phải đối mặt,
that once
những
defined
căng
his
thẳng
life.
và bất định.
When he
Huyền và
finally
Đệ
comes
lên kế
home,
hoạch cho một tương
he
lai an toàn
realizes
hơn,
that true happiness
quyết định trở về
lies
miền Bắc
not in
để gần
survival
gũi hơn
alone,
với gia đình và mang
but
lại
in
sự
love,
ổn định cho Maya.
gratitude,
Qua những thử
and
thách,
second
mối đe
chances.
dọa và những
Yet as peace settles
kết
in,
nối chân thành,
one
câu chuyện
question
ca ngợi
remains.
sức mạnh tình yêu, gia đình
After standing
và sự
so
kiên
close
cường
to
trong
death,
công việc,
How
tạo
will this
dựng hy
new
vọng
life
và an
truly
toàn.
change him?